Mental health professionals, what shattered everything you ever believed about mental health? I used to work in the most violent wing of the worst psych ward in the state, and one Saturday morning my coworker decided to bring her 10-year-old daughter Poppy in with her after her babysitter canceled. Poppy was set up with homework and snacks while we started morning rounds. Everything was fine until my coworker, we'll call her Becca, decided to show Poppy the observation wing, the safe area where families could watch patients through reinforced glass. When they walked over to the wing, Poppy immediately pointed to a boy behind the glass named Alan. Alan was 11 and our most violent patient. 2 weeks ago, he'd bitten through a nurse's forearm down to the bone. Last month, he fractured an orderly's skull with a food tray. The kid nearly killed his foster father, but when he saw Poppy through that glass, he went completely still. He pressed both palms against the glass and just stared at her. Poppy walked up and placed her small hands exactly where his were on the other side. "Mom, can I talk to him?" Becca ripped her away so fast Poppy stumbled. She dragged her daughter back to the break room while Alan started slamming his fists so hard the glass shook. 20 minutes later, the morning recreation started. This meant room doors were now opened, and even the most dangerous patients we had were all free to walk around the common areas for the next hour. That's when Becca came running down the hall with tears streaming. "Where's Poppy?" she screamed. My stomach dropped as I realized Poppy was missing. To make things even worse, the key card in Becca's pocket was gone. In all likelihood, Poppy had taken it and was currently stumbling around the building with unsupervised access to every killer and psychopath we had. One wrong move and she could be dead. I remember sprinting toward the children's wing while Becca went to check the medical stations. Every second felt like an hour. I kept picturing what some of our patients did before they got here, the way some of them went after girls Poppy's age. That's when Becca radioed me. I heard her hyperventilating and begging me to come to the activities room. I sprinted over so fast my blood vessels burst, and when I finally got there, my hands started shaking. Alan and Poppy were sitting cross-legged on the floor facing each other. He was folding paper into shapes while she watched, doing origami which he'd never shown to anyone before. They were talking so quietly I couldn't make out the words. Becca and I locked eyes, going pale. We both knew what Alan could do, how fast he could snap. He'd paralyzed his little sister. One triggered memory and Poppy would be dead before we reached her. I took one step towards them and Alan's body went rigid. The paper crumpled in his fist and his jaw clenched. That familiar pre-violence tension filled his shoulders. I instinctively stepped back, and that's when it happened. Poppy put her hand on his arm. Becca let out a terrified squeal immediately. Her motherly instinct took over and she took a large step forward. But instead of getting violent upon touch like usual, Alan just looked down at Poppy's hand on his arm. His whole body slowly unwound and you could feel his anger subside. Still, Becca continued creeping forward until she was close enough to tell Poppy they had to go. Poppy seemed reluctant, but eventually stood up. "Can I come see you tomorrow?" she asked Alan. He actually nodded, just once, then watched them leave with this expression I had never seen on his face, like someone had shown him proof kindness existed, then immediately taken it away. That night, Alan spoke for the first time since arriving. "Where's Poppy?" The next morning, Becca brought her back. I made the decision to cover for them while Poppy and Alan sat together behind safety glass. They did it again the next day. Over 3 weeks, I watched the impossible happen. Alan started eating without being forced. He took medication without restraints. He apologized to the woman he bit. His psychiatrist said it was unprecedented. Alan was a clinical psychopath in every sense of the word, but Poppy's presence was somehow healing his brain. Sadly, 4 weeks in, the hospital administrator Jeffrey found out what was going on. He stormed in, threatening to fire us both immediately. Lawsuits, liability, screaming that his career would be destroyed if that girl got hurt. He gave Becca an ultimatum: stop bringing Poppy or get blacklisted. But Becca didn't choose either. She used all her savings to hire the best lawyer around, who found precedent for therapeutic intervention. Long story short, they proved that under medical supervision, Poppy's visits should be allowed to continue. However, 2 days before the court-ordered visits were supposed to start, Becca brought Poppy in early to tell Alan the good news, but his room was empty. The night nurse told us he'd been transferred during the overnight shift. Apparently, Jeffrey claimed an incident requiring immediate relocation to maximum security occurred. The paperwork was already sealed. Poppy stood in that empty room staring at the unmade bed, but I was helping him. We'll find him, sweetie. Full story of locating Alan on channel linked below.